You won't believe what I wanted most on my first day home from prison. That's right. In this video, I'm going to share with you the thing that I desired the most when I walked out of those prison bars and those prison gates and that razor wire, when I stepped my foot from the point of incarceration to freedom, when that foot stepped from here to there. You're not going to believe the thing that I desired most, the thing that I wanted most. That's right. In this video, I'm going to share that with you. Actually, we're going to jump straight into it. When you're in prison, you always fantasize about what you're going to do when you get out of prison. It doesn't matter if you're doing a life sentence. Most people who still have life sentences will admit that they do occasionally think about that day that they might get out. They dream about it. Now, you may do it a lot less as you adjust to prison life and as you come to accept the punishment that you have if you're doing a life sentence, or if you're in your 60s and you got a 30-year sentence, if you're in your 50s and you got a 40-year sentence, it ain't life, but chances are it's life. You ain't getting out because we only live so long. Most people don't live to see 100 years old. Very few people ever live to see 100 years old. So when you're in prison, when you have a lot amount of time, you think about what you're going to do when you get out of prison someday. And that's just a reality. And let me tell you something else that's crazy. When you're sleeping in prison, and the longer you've been in prison, your dreams go from being dreams about what happened when you were free throughout your life, because you build up more time in prison than you do on the other side of prison. And your dreams start to reflect your reality, and you start dreaming about prison while you're in prison, being in prison. I remember that was the craziest things that I ever went through. Falling asleep for a nap, and it was usually during the middle of the day when I had a nap, or when it was during count time. Sometimes I'd fall asleep and I would have those quick little cat naps, and I would have those quick little dreams in those cat naps. And I remember waking up like, kind of like looking like that and realizing, dang, I just dreamt that I was in prison. And I was going to jail, and I woke up, I'm in jail, and there's this reality, and you're just shocked. You're like, whoa. And that was one thing that I never could quite control, because I couldn't control my dreams. But on my first year in prison, the things you think about is if I could just get out, to get back on the streets, to hang out with my friends, to go have fun, to go to parties, and to get back on the scene with the crowd. And as time goes on, you begin to go from wanting to be on the scene and in the nightclub or in the bar room or hanging out with your friends or ripping and running. And it begins to shift a little bit over time, for most people, not all people. I know it did for me. That I begin to think, when I get out of prison, I don't think I want to live a life that's going to lead me back to prison. When I was in prison for the second time, and I got out of prison after doing 6 years in prison, I walked out the gates a changed man. Now, nobody around me really knew if I was a changed man. I remember that there was an officer, a CO, who told me before I got out, he said, man, Greg, he said, he called me Chesson because that's your name. COs usually call you by your last name. Chesson. I remember he said, you don't seem like the type of person who would be in prison. I didn't just get to that point. While I was in prison, I began to change my mindset. You have to have a mindset shift. If you don't change your mindset and it doesn't shift the way you think, then the way you live won't change. If you constantly think the same way that you always thought, and you want to step into a newer future, it's going to be the same old, same old. It's a regurgitation of the life that you had before you went to prison. And it happens over and over again. That's why so many dudes are doing life sentences on the installment plan. That's right. They're in and out, in and out. They might come on the street for a year at the most, and they're back in prison for 5 or 10 more years. They go back home, they get back to prison for another 15 years, they get back out for 6 months, and they go back for the rest of their life. And it's a constant cycle. These guys get chance after chance. And every time that they're in prison, they're saying to themselves, man, if I can only get another chance. Well, you had chance after chance. There are some dudes who really been stuck in prison for 30 and 40 years, and they really want a chance. And if they get a chance, they're going to do it right. Now, is 100% of the people who are in prison going to make the right decision when they get out? No, they won't. But if you sat in prison and you got your mind right and you shifted your mindset, then chances are when you get out of prison, you're going to live a better life and you're going to make proper decisions to keep you free. And you won't start doing the life sentence on the installment plan. So for me, the first thing that I wanted to do when I got out of prison, here it is. This is crazy, right? You're probably going to think it's crazy because I'm not going to tell you what a lot of the other channels tell you. I don't have this great story that when I got out, it was the best party of my life. I went to, the homie's house like on shot caller when he first got out of prison because he was in a prison gang and they told him what to do or they were going to take his family's life. Now, think about that. That's just a movie, right? It's Hollywood. It's not real. But there are some facets of that movie that are real. When you in the prison gangs, them dudes run your life. One thing I'm glad I did was time in Louisiana. I'm glad I'm from Louisiana because in the South, you your own man. Gangs don't tell you what to do. You got your own property, you your own man. You pay your bills, you your own man. You pay your taxes, you your own man. You protect your own booty, you your own man. You buy a canteen and go down the walk with your own bag, you your own man. Don't no man tell you what to do. If you could throw these up and fight and protect yourself, you your own man. Now, you might get jumped depending on where you at and who you are. But if you stand on your own 2 feet, you're still going to gain some level of respect. And if it gets too bad, then somebody's going to jump in and help you. I done seen black dudes jump in to help white dudes. I done seen white dudes jump in to help black dudes. That's the way it is in the South. It's just different. All right. In Louisiana, it's really different. It's not the same as other places. The prison system is just different. That's a reality. So wherever you live, that's your reality. So you have to live that reality. You can't be worrying about what they doing in other states. I have to worry about when I went to prison, what was going on in Louisiana, because that's where I existed. You might be from Ohio, Illinois, California, Virginia, Florida. You got to worry about where you're from, Oregon. All those prison systems have their own unique complexities. But when I got out, I wanted to go and have a cup of coffee and sit in solitude. That's right. I wanted to have me a cup of coffee and just sit quietly and get my thoughts together. That's really what I wanted to do. Yes, I had bigger plans than coffee and solitude, but I knew and I realized that in order for me to reach those plans, it was going to take an extended amount of time. I didn't have an illusion in my head that I was going to go home and everything that I ever dreamed and desired while I sat in prison and planned in my head and thought that I was going to be able to accomplish in life. I knew it wasn't going to happen overnight and it was going to take time. So I wanted to have a cup of coffee, sit down, get some solitude. I wanted peace and quiet. Even when I was in prison, I wanted peace and quiet. So when I got 2 dorms that were quiet, I really appreciated that. That's not always the case in every prison. I've been to some chaotic prisons. I'm talking what chaos reigns from the moment that people start waking up until most of the people are asleep. It's just constant chaos. And I've also been in some dorms where it was quiet. There was a respect level. So it's just a difference. It just depends on where you wind up and who winds up as the overall group of people that's in that dorm, right? If you get a bunch of convicts in one dorm, they're going to work on having quiet. Now, if you get a bunch of convicts who are all chaotic and they're young, well, they're going to have that chaos with them. They're going to have that trouble with them. So I just wanted solitude and I wanted a cup of coffee and I got it. One of the first things I did. Me and my parents went to McDonald's. I had my cup of coffee. I read the newspaper and got my thoughts together. And one of the things that I really wanted to do when I got home from prison was I wanted to start bridging that relationship with my children that I had messed up and I had missed out on, which was nobody's fault but my own. I don't blame anybody. Now, I had these plans in my head on how it was going to go. And here I am 21 years later, and I'm looking back, and did it go the way I planned? No, it didn't. It went in all kind of other directions. The complexities were more than I could calculate, and the differences were more than I can calculate. Now, were there good points? Sure. Were there high points? Sure. Were there bad points? Yeah, that too. And my relationship with my children is still a work in progress. I think that's a good way to call it. I'm still alive, and I hope that someday we're able to have the relationship that I always dreamed of. But I've also come to realize that they have their own lives to live and they got their own decisions to make, and that's just the way it is. But I did get my coffee and I got my solitude. And that's what I think you should strive to have today is coffee and solitude. And I'm just talking from the chest, man. I'm just being real with y'all, man. Sometimes it's not, a knife fight story. Sometimes it's not about, you know, a big gang fight in the dorm over the TV, or somebody protecting their booty. You know, there's a lot of, you know, crazy stories that I have. But I also want to keep it real and tell us how we can survive in life and talk from the chest without all the foolishness. That's what I'm doing right here, man. And that's how you can make it in life. You need to find your cup of coffee in your solitude, wherever you at in the free world. And you need to get your cup of coffee in your solitude and get your thoughts together and say, why is my life so chaotic? Because you could be free with a chaotic life. I fight for my peace. And that's why I do my best not to let chaos in my life. I still have my cup of coffee and I still sit with my solitude. And I'm blessed that I have a wife who desires and wants the same thing. We don't want no chaos. We avoid the drama. You know, we do a lot to protect our peace. We pray hedges of protection over our property and our own minds and each other's minds. And I pray for your protection, the hedge of protection and peace over your mind. My subscribers, my community on the Pen and the Shank, our community. You know, this is something that we're building together. It's not just a me thing, you know. The Pen and the Shank, that my whole goal for the Pen and the Shank was it to be a community. I have bigger ideas that we can build the convict community and people who are interested in seeing convicts reach their better potential. I have bigger ideas, but it takes time to get there, right? One step at a time. And I always knew, I try to think logically, and I know that most things take time. And so when I started this YouTube channel, I knew that it was going to be slow traction because you don't know me, because people don't know me. And if somebody like John Gotti, for instance, let's say he's passed away now, but let's say he would have got out of prison and started a YouTube channel. You know him. People know him. He would have gained traction instantly. Nobody knows me. I'm just some dude from Louisiana who's rambling his mouth, and people are like, I don't know that dude. What's he talking about? But the more consistent I am and the more I let you into my life, the more you say, hey, look, man, I resonate with that dude. Me, you know, we can get down, you know. And the more I show you decency and respect, and you show me decency and respect, we build a relationship. And then and then there's trust. As trust is built, reliability is built. You say, I can trust this dude. He's reliable. You know, he's solid. Well, I'm willing to tell my friends about him. And then they come in and they're like, yeah. And look, we all ain't going to be each other's cup of tea. That's just the way it is. Everybody has different interests, you know. But if you like the Pen and the Shank, the most unusual and unique crime and prison channel experience on YouTube, give me a thumbs up and a subscribe. And go back and watch some of my videos. I really am the most unusual and unique crime and prison channel experience on YouTube. That every channel has something that they can highlight. They say, hey, look, this is what I do good. You can't go look at my videos and say that this dude's channel is not unusual and unique, because I'm bringing a perspective of the prison genre that a lot of other people aren't. I'm really bringing some really, you might say, silly, crazy, insane stories that you're like, man, what is this dude even talking about? I've never heard nothing like that in prison. That's the stuff I want to do. Bring the mundane. Everybody talks about the gangs in prison and who was the baddest and who was the toughest. And they still got, you know, they trying to show their paperwork and prove their cred. You know, all that's good. All those stories are fun and everything. But who's telling you stories about some of the stuff that I tell you stories about Flag Man, Bobo Man, you know? That's the stuff you get on the Pen and the Shank, you know? Smokey and his spiders. I'm going to retell that story soon. Spider fights on the prison that I was in. Literal spider fights and the kidnapping of a spider. Stick around, because I'm going to retell that story again. But anyway, thanks for watching the Pen and the Shank, man. Like I said, give me a like and subscribe. Share in the comments. Please take a moment to share in the comments. You know, what do you think? Do you have peace and solitude in your life? Do you want more peace and solitude? What are you willing to do to keep or get your peace and solitude? Is a cup of coffee and solitude enough? Or do you like the drama? Man, let's get it.